everybody! Things don't always go as planned in the kitchen, and this recipe today is an example of just that. So today we have a lesson on improvisation and adjustment, and we're going to turn tragedy into triumph with this delicious smoked chicken sausage that everyone's going to love. So let's get started! I'm starting with whole, bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs today, and the cool thing about using chicken thighs for sausage is that there's no need to add any extra fat. You can even use boneless, skinless thighs, and there's enough fat in there to make a really nice sausage. I like to leave the skin on about half of these. So I'm going to take the skin off half, leave the skin on half, and go ahead and debone these guys. And I'm going to cut this into sixths or quarters, depending on the size. Just want to make nice little inch or inch and a half cubes that I can grind up nice and easy. I've got about 15 pounds of thighs, and I'm looking to get about 10 pounds of ground meat. So I'll cut them all up, and then I'll put the meat in the freezer for a little while to get it slightly firmed up and make that easier for my grind. I've got my meat all cut up and firming up out in the freezer, so I'm gonna prepare the spice blend. Starting with 1/4 cup of mustard powder, 2 tablespoons of plain salt, 2 tablespoons of celery salt, 1 tablespoon of white peppercorns that I'm going to grind up in my coffee mill, the zest of 2 large lemons, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, and 1 teaspoon of ground mace or nutmeg. I also have 1/2 cup of dried milk that's going to serve as a binder, both within the sausage and between the sausage and the casing. And I've got to use a nice big handful of fresh green parsley. And this is sort of a traditional spice blend for a Bavarian white sausage, but once you've been making sausage for a little bit, you'll find that you can mix up all the spices and add things in like dried fruits and cheeses, and you can make something truly unique. I'm going to mix all my spices together so I have one uniform spice blend. Now I'm going to season up the meat before running it through the grinder. And one of my viewers out there gave me the tip to put on these cotton liners under my rubber gloves to keep my hands warmer, because this is ice cold and it will make your fingers hurt real bad. So this works out really nice, so shout out to that viewer. Thanks. So very simply, I have my semi-frozen chunks. You can feel just firmed up a bit, but not so much that they're going to have trouble going through the grinder. And we'll just sprinkle the seasoning all around it. Stir a little. Sprinkle a little. Now I'm just going to get this back into the bowl and get that grinder fired up. Now I've got 10 pounds of seasoned semi-frozen meat, and I'm going to run that through the fine plate on my grinder, and this should make pretty quick work of that. Now, if I were to take this as is and stuff that into some nice hog casings and cook it up, that would make for a great sausage. But this is going to be an emulsified sausage, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it back out in the freezer to keep it nice and cold while I get my station cleaned up and get ready for the emulsification stage. But I'm also going to take a little sample, just a little meatball size, and I'm going to fry that up and check that for seasoning. Now, to emulsify the sausage, I'm going to have to process it in my food processor. The idea is that you'll whip the sausage together, and by introducing the air, you will bind the proteins and the fats together so they won't separate when you cook it, and your sausage will have one consistent texture throughout, just like a hot dog. But the speed of the blades as this is processing will heat up the mixture, and that'll actually separate the fat from the meat. So that's why we're going to be adding ice as we go. And we're going to process it. It's going to start out very cold, and emulsification is going to happen sort of mid-50s Fahrenheit, but you don't want to go above 60 degrees Fahrenheit or the fat in the meat will separate. So we're going to monitor the temperature with our handy meat thermometer. Now let's load this up. I've had this meat out in the freezer, so it's very cold. I'm going to need to push my ice down to the bottom, it seems, because I don't want that meat heating up. And here, the addition of a little water to get this started would also help. So this is taking a little long, so what I'm going to do is reduce the amount of ice I'm using by half and add in 2 cups of water slowly to get this to process a little faster. I've got a little ways to go to get into the mid-50s, but it's already looking good. You want one consistent color throughout, so no, you won't be able to see any separation between meat and fat when this is done. I'm at 56 degrees right now, so now it's essentially ready. I'm just going to toss in a bit of my parsley and whip that around until I got the little bits of parsley that I like to see in there. I didn't put it in at the beginning because I don't want it to blend all the way down and be kind of greenish. I want little flakes of parsley when I'm done. Looks good. You can see that it's all one color, one pink color throughout. You're not going to pick out any little flecks of meat or anything. And I got nice little bits of parsley all over. So now I'm going to whip through about another 5 batches of this, and then we'll stuff up these sausages. So I got about 1/3 of the way in and fried my food processor. But we're not going to panic, we're going to improvise. And instead of making this a completely emulsified and poached sausage, we're going to make this into a semi-emulsified smoked sausage. So, what I'm going to have to do right away is add some nitrate. I'm going to take 2 teaspoons of pink salt, or Cure number 1, and I'm going to dissolve it in some water. And now I'm going to put my emulsified mix in here. And I dumped the parsley in, you can see. And I'm going to pour it into the nitrate solution. And I'm going to mix this all together. It's still nice and cold. And I'm going to add some liquid. In this case, it's going to be some beer, some ice cold beer, to help me mix that in and to soothe my nerves after that incident. This is still pretty cold. I'm going to move pretty quick. I didn't put on those cotton liners, so I'm going to feel it. But I want to get this just blended nice and evenly. And then we'll stuff up some sausage. Alright, let's stuff some sausage. I got my sausage mix here. I'm going to kind of pat it into a ball. I want to kind of work air out of there as much as I can. Slop it to the bottom and then push it down again to try to get any air out of there. Ooh, it's gummy though. This is it's a real gummy paste. This is going to come out of there nice and easy. Onto my sausage stuffer. If you're going to get into sausage making beyond just really small batch stuff, get yourself a dedicated sausage stuffer. Now, I'm working with hog casings today, natural casings that came dried, and I soaked them overnight in the refrigerator. And then I took them over to the sink and ran some water through one end to that kind of opens them up, and you can check for any knots or leaks. Let's see, we got a nice long casing. There's a good one. Kind of like to work with a wet surface to help this thing keep moving along. It's especially helpful when you're doing this alone. Open up the end, slide that over the horn. Should go on fairly easily. You can work out any kinks or twists that might be in there. And I'll leave a couple inches off there for tying this up. Now you may be wondering why I added nitrate to this sausage when I decided to smoke it, and I didn't have nitrate in the original recipe. And that's because the original recipe was going to be quick poached to kill any bacteria, whereas this recipe is going to slowly come up to temperature, and that's going to provide a pretty good breeding ground for some nasty bugs. So the nitrate is going to eliminate any risk of those bugs growing in there. Now, we'll just get to cranking this, and this is a pretty loose sausage mix, so it's going to come out pretty fast and easy. I'm going to hold the end until it starts, let go, and then just kind of gently guide it. Don't want it to go too tight. Okay, we'll stop the couple inches of casing left on that end. Nice. Gonna pinch it in this spot. So, I'm gonna take squeeze a little of the mix out of the end, so I've got some casing here to work with. Then I'm gonna tie it in a knot, and you can't, if you use just a regular square knot, it's probably gonna come loose, and you're gonna find your sausage laying on the floor of the smoker. So, I'm just gonna double that up a little bit. So, first I'm gonna take the two ends, and I'm gonna wrap them around each other a few times, a couple times at least. Then, I'm gonna tie one knot, and another knot, and if I have enough casing left, I'll flip it over and tie one on the back side. And that should hold up throughout the smoking process. Now I'll just hang this on my dowel, and these need to hang at room temperature for at least an hour, up to 2. Now the next step is to condition the sausage. I'm going to put it in the smoker at 120 degrees for the next hour and a half. With no smoke, no water bath. We're just going to condition the casing and get it nice and dry and ready to take on the smoke. So I've got an hour and a half at 120. These feel nice and dry. And so now I'm going to start the smoke and add water to the water pan and raise the temperature to 150 degrees for the smoking period. You want a nice dry surface on the sausage combined with a humid and smoky environment inside your smoker to get the best possible smoke adherence. Now we'll get those pellets down in there, and I am using apple wood today because it's chicken. Now I've been smoking my sausage at 150 degrees for a couple of hours, and they're taking on a real nice color. Now the length of time that you want to hold them and smoke them at this temperature really depends on the type of sausage you're making, as well as your own personal preference. The chicken has a real light flavor, so I'm not going to need a whole ton of smoke to make them taste delicious. I'm also not going to dry them out very much because I'm going to reheat them before serving. Now if I was making a pepperoni stick or a summer sausage, I'd apply a lot more smoke and dry them for much longer. And the process is pretty much the same for whatever kind of smoked sausage you're making. There's the conditioning phase, then the smoking phase, and then the final cook, followed by a quick cool down. So I'm going to give my sausages a couple of more hours in the smoke, then I'll bump up the temperature to finish the cooking before hitting them with a nice blast of icy water to finish them off. Now I'm 4 hours in on my smoking phase, and I'm ready to bump it up to 180 for the final cooking phase. And I'm going to cook this until I get an internal temperature of 152 to 155 degrees. You can go a little bit higher than that, but if you hit 180, that's a critical failure where your fat inside your sausage is going to separate from the meat and just make a nasty mess that's just going to be pet food. Alrighty, that took about an hour. I took it up to 154 degrees to be safe. And now it's time to cool these off. And you can dunk these in an ice bath if you want. But I just like to hammer them with the hose this time of year, because this water is icy cold. And that will just about do. These things look and smell great. And I'm going to just leave them to hang out here overnight. We got mid-30s out here, so they're gonna be just fine, and we'll try them out tomorrow. Anybody looking for a burn-up Cuisinart? I'll do you a good deal. Let's take a look at how we did. Oh boy. Oh yeah, these are nice and firm. Got a nice color and they smell really good. It's ice cold out here. These are fully chilled out. Now these are cured and fully cooked, so you could just slice these up and eat them as they are. But they've got a pretty high fat content, so they're going to be much better heated up. So I'm going to toss some of this on the grill and really see how we did. Now let's see how we did. Oh, it smells great. Got a nice crispy skin to it. Oh, you can see the texture is not fully emulsified. It's got some nice little bits of meat in there as well as the emulsified parts. So that should make for a pretty nice texture. Holy moly, sweet frioli! Oh my! That came out fantastic! Oh, the skin is great and crunchy. The texture, while not what I was aiming for originally, is really good. And the flavor's great. It's not too smoky. I can still taste all those aromatic notes from the spices. Really a good sausage. I'd definitely make this again. And speaking of frijoles, that would be great in a pot of beans. Or maybe some jambalaya. Really good sausage. I couldn't be more happy with this considering what I went through to get here. Well, I really hope you try this, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it. And if you do, please like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.